Hey guys, what is up? It is Melanie. It is funny to be talking to you from this angle. I've switched things up a bit with my room. As you can see, I actually literally just did this like 5 minutes ago. That's besides the point. Today we are talking about books. Books, something that I haven't talked about for way too long on this channel, and I'm so excited to give you guys some hot new recs today. I have my pile of books here to talk to you guys about, but I also have more that aren't here. So there's a lot of recommending going on and thoughts on books, and just I'm excited to get into it. So other than that, let's get started. Okay, so since I haven't done a book video in so long, I will be talking about some books that I read quite some time ago. Orbiting Jupiter is pretty short, a little under 200 pages, really spread out. I forgot why I got this. I think I literally saw like some quote from this book and I thought it was like, oh, I want to read that whole thing. But this is one of the few books that I actually brought to London with me, and I read it pretty quick. I think I read it in like a train ride or something. When Jack meets his new foster brother, he already knows 3 things about him. Joseph almost killed a teacher. He was incarcerated at a place called Stone Mountain, and he has a daughter. Her name is Jupiter, and he's never seen her. This book basically takes you through the relationship of Jack and Joseph, who become kind of like step-ish brothers because Jack's family takes Joseph in, and Joseph is kind of having a rough time. It goes through their relationship and how Jack tries to be a friend to Joseph, and how Joseph also struggles with having a daughter, and it also goes kind of into the history, how like Joseph got there, why he has a daughter. This book, again but better, my friend gifted me this book where I went to London. It's about a girl who goes to study abroad in London. So this girl, Shane, has been studying pre-med, but she's kind of on that path where her parents are making her. She's not sure why she's doing what she's doing. What she wants is to become a writer. She has a blog and she does that for fun. And so she takes a chance. She goes to London to study writing without telling her parents. She meets a boy, of course. He had a weird name. Oh, his name is Pilot. Okay, so she meets this guy named Pilot. She meets her friends there, and honestly the first half of the book I was like not feeling it. I was like, this feels like Wattpad. This Shane is kind of annoying, she's kind of flirt, she's kind of a pick-me girl, not having it. But it also jumps into the future after abroad. It's also really interesting because I ended up reading this while I was there. It showed her maturing and her growth. Our relationships with people from abroad like changed afterward. Yeah, it was actually a pretty good book. It's a fun little read too, and an interesting concept. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. That was the first Colleen Hoover book that I ever read, and boy oh boy, I read that one really quick. What I have gathered from the different Colleen Hoover books I read is that she does a good job at getting you like engaged with the character and enjoying reading the book. A lot of them do kind of overlap and I feel like get kind of similar, but they're very good hot reads, quick reads, get you very in the romancy. It Ends With Us is one of her most popular ones, I would say. I'll put a picture of the cover because I unfortunately don't have it with me. This one's kind of funny. I don't know, the concept of it is funny to me, but it's about this girl named Lily. She's like a small town girl, and her love interest, Ryle, is literally a neurosurgeon, which I don't know, silly little thing. But the concept of this book was really interesting to me. Without saying too much, it kind of goes into love in different means, love in different types of relationships, and also it takes you through kind of like a toxic love turn, and you don't know where to stand with it, who to like be supporting. I think that was Colleen Hoover's goal with this book. I want to read more of Colleen Hoover's books. I have a couple more here actually that I do want to read. Beach Read by Emily Henry is one of those kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's the perfect book to read in the summer when you're by the pool, when you're just chilling. It's a nice like feel-good little romance. This one was perfect. I would always bring it and read it at the beach, which was like fun and good, but also like it took me forever to finish it because I'd only read it at the beach and I live in Washington. I really like Emily Henry's writing though. It's very good for like young adult romance books. Ironically enough, this book is about a writer, and she's kind of in a little rut, and she finds herself in a little romance situation with another guy who is also a writer. So January writes romance novels, which is very fitting, and then her crush Augustus, which every time, I don't know, Augustus, I can't like not think of Augustus Waters, but that's fine. He is fiction or something else. She is in a writing rut and she's having a tough time with family or something like that. I believe she had something difficult with family, which led to her staying at this like remote cabin, which coincidentally is right next to his cabin, no other cabins. And so they are both in a writing block together. They are also kind of like enemies-ish, you know, like opposites. She doesn't really vibe with him at first, but you know, they're obviously very similar. I think they also went to high school together. And so they have this kind of flirty little rivalry with their writing and whatnot that results in challenges, more flirting, and eventually they come up with a deal. I love books where they come up up with these funny little like deals that never happen in real life. I don't know, I've never done that. They come up with a deal to get each other out of their ruts, and basically they're swapping genres, and then they go on little like dates but not dates to inspire each other and teach each other how to write in that way. And then obviously, I mean, without saying too much, but going along the ride, stuff happens. So read that book, it's cute, it's fun. Normal People by Sally Rooney. I actually just started watching this, the Hulu series, and I don't know if this is a unpopular opinion, but I think I like the series version of her content more than I do the books, and not because it's all sexy. Her content is very sexy, it's sometimes a little too much, but I think it's very cinematic and like calming and soothing for those, like, I don't know, it's kind of depression era reading stuff. Like it's sad realistic love. And I mean, maybe you can tell with the title, Normal People, I think her goal is to go through a very like realistic and normal relationship and all the beauty and all the pain and confusion that comes with that. It's not supposed to be, you know, Emily Henry's version of I find my perfect opposite and we hate each other and then we love each other and then it's perfect. It's kind of like two very arguably boring people, normal people who like at the surface seem very gray and simple and like, I don't know, not the most interesting people. You can see how when they are together they can kind of click and understand each other. So it takes you through the relationship of Connell and Marianne, and they grew up in high school together, and it takes you all the way through college and I believe past graduation, they're young adults, and all the different stages that they're in. So you do feel like you grew up with them and in their relationship, them dating other people, them dating each other, and like all the things that go in a relationship. And I just remember this book took me a while to get through just because it's very character driven. It's very, you're a part of their relationship, you know their thoughts. And I think what's really interesting about Sally Rooney's writing is she writes very like thought-provoking things. I don't know, sometimes I feel like they're way too smart for me, like I don't know what they're talking about. They're both supposed to be like super smart and stuff, and yeah, it goes through the complexities of them and themselves and them in a relationship. And yeah, it took me a while to get through it, so I think that kind of took away some of the effect of reading it. I would recommend reading some of Sally Rooney's work at some point, and I will be talking about 2 other books from her. The second Sally Rooney book I read was Conversations with Friends. Okay, that one got me kind of heated. It's kind of a little bit messy, very messy, because she goes through Conversations with Friends is about pretty much 4 characters. I believe it also just became a Hulu show. It is about 2 girls who are best friends, Frances and Bobby, and Frances is a writer, Bobby is her, I don't know, friend. They're like kind of lovers, kind of besties. They do like spoken word, which is already something far from anything I know about. So it's really interesting reading about lives of people who are just like, you know, different than you. It's cool. And they get intertwined with each other, and in this older married couple, Melissa and Nick, and I believe Melissa is friends with Frances more specifically, but then like Frances and Bobby are besties, so they like meet her at their spoken word thing. And I think Melissa's a writer and Nick's like an actor or something like that, but they're about a couple years older than them and like established, married. They have their married friends, but they still become friends with these college students. It's hard to describe a lot of Sally Rooney's books because they don't necessarily have a distinct plot other than describing the characters, so it's kind of just something you have to read. And I will say from my experience reading this was like the only book I had at hand when I was like on a trip, so I read it really fast. And what I found from Sally Rooney's content, whether it's shows or books, is that when you, I think this is with all things, like to get into something you have to like consume it faster, because then it consumes more of your thoughts and then you like it more. But I found that I really, even though I didn't agree with the characters a lot of times, I enjoyed reading this one a lot more than I enjoyed reading Normal People, so I was kind of surprised. Also, just with Sally Rooney's books in general, I think it's interesting. I feel so different and all of her characters she describes, yet at the same time I feel like sometimes I can relate to their thoughts. I still enjoy understanding their relationship and reading her books a lot. On that note, the 3rd book I have by her is called Beautiful World, Where Are You? I think this is one of her lesser known books, and this one took me a little while to get through. It was kind of like at times. It's still there. It's not a terrible read. It's about Alice, who is a novelist, and her friend Aline. It takes you through their relationship as they're writing letters to each other, so they kind of like write letters in between here, or emails or something, and then also it shows what's going on in both of their lives. lives. On Alice's side, she's a writer, and she, I don't know, kind of randomly just starts hanging out with this dude named Felix, who's like a construction worker or something like that, I don't remember. And then Aline, who's a bit younger, I believe, but they were friends in some type of school, has like this on and off thing with this dude named Simon. It kind of takes you through their relationships with their male friends. At times it goes into the question of like, where's life going? Is this world we live in beautiful or messed up? And is it worth living too? And it tackles that through a lot of like relationships between Alice and Aline as friends, but also with the different people they meet throughout the book and coming together as a group. Another one of those character driven little plots. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm sure you saw this everywhere on TikTok, but all I will say is literally read this. Personally did not think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did. I remember when I saw all the postings about it on TikTok, I was like, no, not for me. It didn't sound like a concept I'd be super interested in, but I ended up seeing it at a bookstore and I had no books to read, and I was like, okay, I guess. So this one is about Evelyn Hugo, but is written in the perspective from Monique Grant, who is a writer. She starts off at a smaller like writing company, and she's like, you know, trying to work her way up there, but out of nowhere she actually gets sought out by Evelyn, and Evelyn wants her to write her book. Evelyn Hugo has a super scandalous life. She's like the biggest celebrity movie star of her time, and this is years after kind of retired all of her fame, and they go through her story through her 7 different lovers. It ties a little bit in from like Monique's life, and it definitely ties there into the end because it goes over the questions of who is Evelyn Hugo's one love of her 7 different husbands, what happened there. It also just goes through her entire life story, how she became so famous, the work she had to put in to get there, the bad things and the good things that she did, all the relationships she's had. It also at the end kind of ties in like why Monique, and what does Monique have to do with Evelyn, why was she sought out by her. Really amazing book. I'm gonna mention this one because it's also by the same author, Taylor Jenkins Reid. I mentioned this in a recent video where I was reading that book, but now I can talk about it because I actually finished it. This one is quite the different story. It's kind of about a much more normal relationships, but it takes a spin on it. Another little multiverse thing. There is a girl named Hannah. She's moving to LA to live with her friend Gabby, and the book starts off with her at the bar with Gabby, and she is seeing like her hometown friends. Shows 2 very different lives and 2 very different paths she could be on if she decides to go home with Gabby that night, or she decides to go home with Ethan that night. Ethan is like her high school lover or something. The book is super interesting because you kind of pick sides, but it's for the same character, and of course you get introduced to different characters based on the decisions that Hannah makes. Once again, just like Midnight Library, it kind of makes you think, like, what if I make a different decision? To say the least, her life ends up quite different from that little decision. So this is interesting because this was written in 2015. I believe 7 Husbands was written in like 2017. In only 2 years, I feel like you can tell how much her writing has kind of like changed and improved. The Midnight Library, the main character Nora, I didn't really connect to her. I thought she was a little annoying. Anyways, she basically goes through this crazy adventure where she wants to end her life, and it takes her to the Midnight Library where every book she can open a different path. Basically, it goes over like the multiverses, the entire like what would have happened if I did one little thing different, and it's kind of like a mind boggle. So if you're kind of stuck in life, I feel like it's a really good motivational type book. But it was also a pretty quick read, just a great concept. Honestly, it wasn't super character driven in my opinion, but I think that the concept made it worth it, and it does make you think about, you know, the value of life and the way you want to be living it, because, you know, it's super true. You can go so many different directions even from the moment you're at right now, and there are different paths you could have been on right now if you made different decisions earlier on, and that's the entire question that this book focuses on. Dance of Thieves series. I remember it took me a little while to get into the first book, but once I did, I flew through the second half of it and the second book, and then the third one was kind of a downer, but it's okay. It was still good. It was still worthwhile. I would say it was pretty up there. I was a huge, I forgot what it's called, City of Glass, like City of the Shadowhunter series. I was really into that. that at a time, and I feel like this was the first kind of like dystopian, futuristic, it's not really dystopian, but basically there's like kingdoms and empires. The main character, Kazi, is like a young girl, but she's also a thief, hence the title, and she basically gets tied up with Jace Ballinger, who is one of the leaders of a different empire, kind of like an enemies to lovers. So if you're into that trope, you will like this one. I always get hooked into the enemies to lovers trope, as much as I like to say that I'm not like crazy about it, but it gets you like page turning. I did read this one a long time ago, and the books that I binge read, I don't always retain the most information, but I remember this one kept me on my feet and going, so I really do recommend this one. Atomic Habits is a book I heard a lot about at the time. It was during the, okay, believe it or not, this was back like really peak COVID era, when I feel like a lot of people, and I myself, were into self-help books. I haven't read a lot of those types of books since then, but this one was very, very motivational. I remember it gave a lot of examples and statistics. Did I retain them? No, I didn't, but when you read it, you're like, oh, I could be successful. I could build good habits right now, which is absolutely so true. It was pretty easy to read and digest. I read it at work. Love Does, where is it? This is a book by Bob Goff. Once again, it's very digestible. It's a very feel-good book. It's kind of the same energy as Tuesdays with Morrie, where he's kind of giving you personal life stories, different things he's learned from his life, and giving you advice with that. And the concept throughout the entire thing is love and love from God. I don't know, it was a very uplifting book. I remember at the time I really needed that too, so I really do recommend this. I would actually say this is probably one of my favorite books, although it's not the typical, you know, little love story that I always read. Anyways, hopefully you got a good grasp of some of these books and put them on your TBR. If you read any of these or have any other book recommendations, of course, please leave them below. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.
I know you wanna leave, so come on, baby, be with me so happily.